Hi guys, welcome to another YouTube video. It's Paul again, and today we're talking about bubble. We're not talking about Flutter Flow today. Today's going to be a bubble day because there've been a whole lot of shaking happenings in the bubble system for a couple of days now, and I think it's something that you want to hear. Some persons are saying, should I stay with Bubble or should I go learn Flutter Flow or should I go use a different database? Should I use Xano? Should I use nocode backend? And so I'm joined by Tom today. Tom is an amazing Bubble dev, and trust me, you don't want to go there. He's a big professional in this industry, built a whole lot of apps, and today he's going to help us understand what it means, the whole pricing thing, what it means, what you can do about it, how you can optimize your applications. And we're going to answer those questions, but we're not live. Probably next week we're going to be live again, so you'll be able to, ask your questions as we go. Hey Tom, what's up?
Good, pretty well. Well, not so good about the bubble workflows. Mm.
I know not a lot of persons are cool, not a lot of persons are comfortable with the whole bubble thing. But how's it been for you, How's your app doing and how's your app doing? Did you have to change? What are you doing about your app currently?
Right now, I'm only doing some experiments, because we still don't know how it will go, in which way. Bubble admitted that they are watching it and they will make some response this week. So we are still waiting for that. For them to clarify the workflow units, the calculations, and so on. Because right now it's a huge hype on that. Maybe we can call it a crisis, a social crisis. Yeah. But the truth is that no one really understands how they should work on Bubble in the following weeks, following months, how to change, if to go somewhere else or stay with Bubble.
When I heard about the price change myself, I was just so grateful that I know how to use other database, and I also am very good with using a tool like Flutterflow that allow me to
Mhm.
extend my code already. And I remember when I posted on Twitter and I said, "Hey, thank God I'm using Flutterflow. I know how to use Flutterflow," and that was like the one of my best tweets because everybody was like, "Oh my God, so you know how to use Flutterflow?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I do know how to use Flutterflow." And you know, what was your first reaction when you had about the when you got the mail? Bubble sent everyone a mail saying, "Hey, we're changing that price." What was your first reaction when you got the mail?
The first reaction was positive because I understand that the price has to change. The first plan was only 29 US dollars. It's not that much for a full stack development app as Bubble is. So I understand that they need to change the pricing. They tried to do it a year ago, and I thought when I received that email, I thought this time they will do it right. Yeah. And also the idea of pay for usage is it's also fair, right? Because you are about to pay for what you are using, the resources, and it's also fair. But then I went to forum, I went to Twitter to see what people think about it, and I started to dig deeper about this unit, this workflow unit, and because the whole pricing now is about the workflow units, and then things started to change in my mind because no one really understands how to calculate these workflow
Yeah,
units.
how to calculate the unit? Talking about the unit, I see people make even you yourself made a couple of experiments on Twitter a couple of days ago. Just creating a page and just reloading it. Just
Yeah.
reloading the page and it was counting, just reloading the page and the unit was increasing. And some of the person made some experiments about not storing any data on Bubble, but just doing it on another backend and it was still counting. But is this something, I mean, what have you tried so far?
I tried a couple of things. So firstly, I took a look in my current apps, but it was millions of workflows, so it makes no sense, because I don't know. I don't know even what to do with it. Bubble announced the webinar in, I think, in a few days that will happen about explaining how to optimize, but it's not the case. I mean, how much can you optimize if you have 50 million and the limit is 200,000? It makes no sense. So I started to experiment, with creating a blank. mm, Start a new app, creating a blank page, and see what happens when you just having a blank page with no elements at all. And I found out that even if you have an empty page, loading this page takes, I think, 7 or 8 workflow units. Or if you disable cookies for new users, it takes four units. So that's still a lot, only loading a page, because that means that you are, it's very hard to scale your app when loading the page takes a couple of units. It should be a fraction of unit maybe for loading the page and then doing actions, because loading the page is not the only thing that takes workflow units.
Yeah.
This is the beginning, yeah. So I also took some text tests with getting things from database, doing a search, and also putting things in database. And this is where things are going really scary, because, for example, putting things into database by CSV import, it takes about 4 units per one thing. Yeah. Mm.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Wow.
so uploading 10,000 records means
It's
that you
40,000
around,
units.
yeah, 40,000 workflow units, and then around again getting strings from the database, doing for search. It's also workflow consuming. So mm, I think it's overpriced in terms of how much workflow units it takes for operations in Bubble, and they need to rethink it. So possibly after, when you are watching this video, the whole announcement will be
Will be
with us, and
clear. Yeah.
yeah, they will clarify that. But right now we still don't know what to do. So I started to experiment with some external backend databases, backend tools.
Okay. Tom, um, thank you for clarifying that. I did not even know that when you upload a thing in database, it costs you your unit. So I thought probably it's majorly for very complex workflow or maybe backend workflow. That's when you get to, you get to use units. So I'm even thinking, what if you're doing a scheduled workflow? I mean, that's going to consume a whole lot. What if you're reading a webhook? Like you're reading an entire webhook, you're downloading um, all the data that comes with the webhook, and then you're using it in the application. How's that really going to affect? How's that really going to affect? Especially if you have like, there's this thing about Bubble that you can do a thing while some other thing is actually running. So if a particular thing is good, I want you to change a thing. So what's going to happen if you run a SaaS that requires you to use a whole lot of scheduled workflow? Do you think it's something that you'll be able to continue?
It takes a lot. It takes a lot. I have one app where I have only a scheduled workflows for it's for managing the calendar with integration with Google Calendar. And for one user, working with all the webhooks, and it's just the user, it's even not using the app. It's only for the scheduled workflows, for updating the calendar, and it consumes, I think, don't remember now, but nearly 200,000 workflow units a month. So it makes no sense for more users. It also, you also cannot easily compare. You cannot dig down into the workflow units, because the whole calculator, the bubble calculator, is still a prototype. Yeah, it's not very useful in terms of experimenting. So right now, when I have my app with some complicated workflows, it makes no sense to dig into and check what can be optimized, because you don't really know how to do it, how to calculate it, and how to check things. So maybe it will be improved. It has to be improved for the developers.
Yeah, yeah, it has to be improved. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine in Nigeria that owned a SaaS application. So, you know,
Mhm.
if you're charging in dollars, it's a bit different when you're charging in your local currency because dollars is like the world currency and your local currency, sometimes it's not as, heavy as the dollar. And being in Africa, it might be a lot difficult for you to get somebody to pay you like $49. You know, there are tons of
Yeah,
SaaS application in India because they build stuff and they tell you we're going to charge you $99 a month. But here it's going to be very difficult. And she was charging around $10 per user. And then now she has 30 users. And 30 users, and I asked her just yesterday, I asked her, are you sure you want to continue with this? Because now you're not making profit. You're not making profit. And even if you keep going, you can increase your price, you can make profit. And now bubble, you can't really make use of bubble if you're not, you can't really keep running your business if you're not really making profit. So I know you have your stuff set up. Can you deep down, like maybe share your screen and let us see, help us understand, all this workload, the units, and how it currently work.
sure. Just let me share my screen. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're visible now.
Now you should be able to see my screen. So basically, what has changed when you go to the this is the empty app, right? Quite a new one. When you go to logs, you will see that new app metrics tab where you can track your workload usage, and it shows you the workload usage for the last 30 days
Yeah,
divided for development and live. This is also the case, the bubble is counting the development usage. So even if you are building your app and testing it, it counts the same as live usage. So these two sum up. And here you have the days, and this is the breakdown of workflow usage divided for the tasks. So this is the really simple app where I was making some experiments. You can click on the day. You have a breakdown of hours, and then you can go deeper. For example, click page load, and you have the list of pages that was taking the workflow units. Or, for example, you can click fetching data, and it would give you a breakdown of fetching data. When you click search, it will give you the exact list of searches you have done. Yeah. So, and that's all. It updates every hour. So.
yeah,
Uh, it's very hard to experiment because you have to wait till the full hour for the graph to refresh. And it's also very hard uh, to get the exact values from the graph.
okay.
There's a way because you can inspect page, and in the page source get the exact values for this one. But it's pretty simple in terms of like a bird view of the workflows in the app. It
Yeah,
doesn't give you the possibility to check the every workflow
that you're currently
from
running.
the ideal way, will be to have this here in the workflows. Where you have the workflow, it will give you the calculation of the workflow. I think this will be the way. But right now we only have this. We only have
Oh,
this
okay. I think that's going to be extreme, before you set up a workflow, Bubble calculates the workflow for you and you'd be like, no, I'm not going to set it. And so that would be, I think that's going to be a whole different thing entirely. It's going to be so extreme. So I think people, you and others have been talking about optimizing your database, optimizing your app structure, optimizing so that if Bubble decides to stay with this plan, then you can actually keep using your application without incurring more charges. And there are ways that I'm not talking about Xano now. I'm not talking about, off Bubble. I'm talking about optimizing in Bubble. Are there ways that
Mhm.
the users can optimize their application now, pending when they find a solution to pending when Bubble find a solution to this. Because if I have an application, that means it's still counting. It's still counting. I'm using more resources. Is there any way I can users can optimize existing application?
Yeah, for now, I think that the good thing is that when you have the working application, you still have the 18 months grace period when you can stay with your current plan. So it's plenty of time, to decide what to do. So it's a good thing that Bubble allowed to do this. And when you go to Bubble Forum, you have some kind of list of things that can be optimized. As I said, they also announced that they will be helping to optimize things. But when I started thinking about this, um, I found out that with this current workflow usage
Yeah,
calculations makes no sense for optimizations, because how much you can optimize with the current bubble database structure. How do they manage data in bubble, updating things, deleting things. It was always the case. Bubble is working on a new data structure, and to optimize the managing of big data databases. But right now, for now, I think it makes no sense for optimization the things you have in Bubble, because we don't really know how to do it. I think it will clarify in the following weeks and months. And for now, I started to experiment with some external data sources, which
yeah,
is also
yeah,
a good idea. If you are looking for a way not only how to optimize from the existing app in Bubble, the existing data set in Bubble, but also how to, be not as Bubble dependent as you are, and take some data outside of Bubble.
okay. Um, you said something about not being able to count, not being able to experiment, and you said something about Bubble building another database structure. So, what's wrong with the current way we use database in Bubble right now?
I think that the Bubble database, when you have these data types
Yeah,
and that data, they are really powerful in terms of how you create types, how you create relations between these types. It's really easy
yeah,
to do.
yes,
But the problem is when you have a lot of records in the database. When you want to, for example, bulk update, bulk delete, or bulk create records, it is very hard, or it is very time consuming. And when it's time consuming, it is also workflow units consuming. You want to
yes,
update
yes, yes. You're right.
couple of thousand of records. It's nearly impossible to do it without the recurring workflows or some hacks.
Oh yeah, I see what you're doing. I see what you're saying. Like it's almost looking like Bubble is not for you if you want to grow, if you have tons of data that you're consuming. So if you have a lot of data, you shouldn't come to Bubble because you're going to have a whole lot of units. You're going to use a whole lot of workflow if you are managing big data and deleting big data. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it's also not only workflow consuming but time consuming. When you are trying to update thousands of records in Bubble right now, it takes a lot of time. Yeah, and you have to do it in backend workflows, set up some recurring workflows. There are ways to do that, but it is not easy. But I know that Bubble is working on that, and they are still improving. So possibly in the future, it will be easier to do that. But there are some external databases that you can use right
Yeah.
now. You can put it to Bubble and experiment. So I think it's a good moment to do that.
Definitely. Talking about external database, even though I would love to talk about data types in Bubble, data type in as we move in the coming weeks, data type in Bubble, people still have struggle understanding the current data type, especially optimizing for scale. You know, sometimes you build an application on Bubble, and then it's not time for you to scale, and it's time for you to add more features, and you just be like
Mhm.
everything just break down. Your entire application just break down because you can't seem to find a way to maybe either create new relationship with the main team in your application, build, add new data structure, make it more complex, or really make it scalable. That's something that I really want to discuss with you in the future. But for now, let's talk about exploring the other bubble database alternative,
Mhm.
alternatives and how people can get started with it.
Mm, yeah. I think that if you want to start pretty fast, you should get familiar with Xano. Xano is a no-code backend database. It's also pretty simple to set up. Not as simple as Bubble data types,
It's,
but still
it's
still
almost
simple.
like the UI is looking like Xano was built on Bubble.
Yeah. Especially the creator. But
Yeah,
you also have the free plans, so you're able to experiment with the
the free plan.
with the free plan. You can sign up uh, and create a workspace and workspace to experiment. But the interface is completely different. If you are only familiar with Bubble, it will be hard. But you also got a tons of tutorials of documentations.
Yeah.
It pretty easy. And the thing is that Xano is the database, right? Xano is the database. It's not the front end, so you are not able to build up in Xano. You are able to build up on any tool that allows you to build up and connect Xano as a database. So you can connect Xano to Bubble, you can connect Xano to Flutterflow, you can connect Xano to any other
I need to.
front end. And this is the thing that if you in the future, if you are considering, moving from Bubble to other editor, you will still keep your data in Xano. Mm, of course, Xano is also a no-code solution, and the data stays in Xano, and you are not able to, to self-host it. So this may be also a threat. If you are looking for a self-hosted solutions, you may go to Supabase, for example. It's a database where uh, either can be hosted on cloud or self-hosted. But Xano is easier to connect to Bubble due to the plugins.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that you still don't have access to your data even when you use Xano. Is that what you're saying?
You have your data, but if you would like to take the data from Xano and host it somewhere else, you have to rebuild the integration between Bubble and this other solution, right?
So you can really, okay, for example, if you're using Firebase, which I'm very used to, which some of my users are very used to because they build on a couple of other tools. Xano is something that I've not explained on this channel before, but for newcomers, I really want you to explain it. If I have my data on Xano, is it possible for me to export those data to like Airtable, spreadsheet? Is it possible for me to export everything over there?
Yeah, for sure. You can export the data. You just can't take the whole Xano infrastructure and host it on your own. But you can export the data and put it, for example, in the Firebase. But then when you have the Bubble Xano integration, you will need to, to create the integration between Bubble and the Firebase. But the data is yours. You can export the data from Xano, and it's quite easy to
Oh,
do.
okay. So what do you think about the Xano pricing? You think it's fair?
Um, it's quite fair because you have where is the pricing? I think the pricing is $59 per per paid plan if you are
And then
paying yearly. So it may be a lot,
click on the
but
upgrade, like click on the upgrade. It should be here. Upgrade,
yeah,
yeah.
okay. So the free plan, you have a one workflows and 10,000 total records. You have also rate limits on API, so it's good for start and for testing purposes. And if you'd like to change the plan, you are going to launch plan. We switch to monthly. So monthly it will be 67. Yearly it's $700 dollars a year, right? So if you would like to go with yearly plan, it's $700. It's not it's not as cheap as Bubble, but with this you don't have the limits. You have a lot of things in the database, and you can build on that pretty much, right? You are
So,
also able to choose the server region for that, which is quite important for the people who for example, keeping sensitive data and would like to have a location in Europe or somewhere else. Like
so what if you go past your limit when you're using your Xeno database? What happens when you go past your limit?
you are able to expand this limits and buy an additional, additional things. For example, media storage, database storage, but you don't have the rate limit, right? You don't have they don't counting the API calls.
So does that mean that you could do everything, API call authentication with Xano, and then if you have heavy files, you can store it somewhere like Dropbox or the rest, so
Yeah,
you can keep
yeah,
yourself
yeah,
safe.
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. So it's pretty cool. If you here is the comparison. Uh, you have unlimited records of data, 3 GB of data storage, and no rate limiting in terms of performance, in terms of API, right? So it's pretty okay because on that you don't have the rate limits that kills Bubble for now, right?
Yeah, that's true. One more question before you move to showing how Xano works. How does Xano compare with Supabase? And the Supabase is very
Yeah.
juicy, very cheap,
Yeah.
very very affordable. But as a Bubble developer yourself, how does Xano compare with Supabase? And how does it compare to like using a tool like Airtable for your database?
Uh, in Xano, you have much more. It's for me, Xano is just the simpler, right? It's full no-code solution. You have a ready-to-go APIs. You can have also something like backend workflows in Xano, and it's really easy to set up. And you have ready-to-go plugins to go with Xano. But if you are, more advanced, Supabase will be the better option because it's cheaper. You can host it on your own. But the thing is that you need to build an integration which works on client side if you are going to work with Bubble. Because if you are just making an API calls from the backend, it counts as a workflow unit. The power of Xano and this approach is that right now we are having a Xano connector which works fully on the client side when you are working with Bubble. It is also possible with Supabase, but it's not. We don't have a plugin yet. Someone has to create it. So you have to either build the integration on your own or go with this Xano plugin.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I think we can go now. Thank you.
Yeah. So as I said, the main thing in Xano is the database. So you have the database tables. So it's something like data types in Bubble, right? For example, I have the people data type in Bubble. I can recreate in Xano, creating table called people, and it will when I create a table, it will create an API for accessing data in this table. So it's also very very convenient. So when I add this table and I go to API, you already have the endpoints for this table.
Oh
Querying,
yeah.
adding, deleting, editing, and so on. And I can go to database and add the new fields quite easily here, for example, name and surname and so on. Uh,
Yeah, and I think
yeah, so
something is good. I'm seeing something here. You can tell if it's nullable or not. And
yeah,
that's something that is very, very useful when it comes to keeping records.
yeah. So right now I'm recreating that schema I have in Bubble, and right now I have the same schema I have in Bubble. So I have a name, surname, profession, and email, just like here in Bubble.
Yeah,
And I can add the new records from here, right? For example, John Doe. mm, Yeah, and right now I have the base database set up in Xano. I have an API to connect to this data. So, for example, if I want to query all the items from the database, I can use this endpoint, and I can easily test it from here. Click run and debug and see the result of this API is,
straightforward. Yeah,
yeah, it just provides me JSON that allows me to do everything with that. And when we go back to Bubble, the old way was to use the API connector, and
yeah,
to create an Xano API and create these API calls, right? For example, I can copy the endpoint
the endpoint.
URL from here, put it here. It is get people. So, for example, get people, and it should initialize call. Yeah, see, and it works. It just took the values from the Xano from this endpoint, and it works. But the problem is that when you are using this approach with API connector in Bubble, it consumes the workflow units. So it makes no sense to connect Xano that way
Yeah,
because it
you.
consumes workflow
Yeah.
units. So, but there
Then you
is,
you you end up paying for two things at the same time. You end up paying for the same thing twice.
yeah, yeah. So it makes no sense to use the API connector to get data from Xano. But there is another way. The API connector will leave for now, but there is this cool plugin called Xano
Xano
connector.
connector.
Yeah, I have my URLs here, so we can set it up when I will show you the example. And this is a Xano connector. It performs all the actions on the client side, so it doesn't touches the server side, so it doesn't touches the workflow units. So this is the beauty of this Xano connector, and it's using the official Xano as SDK for JavaScript, right? So it's official. It's not a hack, so you can use it, and you can easily recreate your current data calls using this Xano connector, because when Ellie and Jared created it, they created it to be similar to the current Bubble
Bubble call.
way of working.
Yeah, and I can see some elements like auth query. I can see some events and also some actions. I mean, these are some very popular actions on Bubble, like sign in,
Yeah,
log in, refresh, trigger, log the user out. These are some very, very, very similar actions and elements when it comes to Bubble. So I wanted to talk about security. So I can see some of the elements of some of the common elements of Bubble in this Xeno connector. We have like, the auth, the events, and the actions plugin, and they're all here. And these are things that you regularly do with workflow with Bubble when you want to integrate with anything or you want to create any action or events in your application. But one thing that I'm pretty concerned about is security. Since you're going to be handling everything in Xeno, what are the security risks in doing all this? Because you're sending data out of Bubble, bringing it back, sending it here, bringing it back. what's the security risk, and if there is any security risk, how can people really, get navigate it?
Yeah, so basically you have to take care of your data in Xano, right? Because you are able to build some, let's call them privacy rules in Xano, but it's not as easy as in Bubble, right? You have to. It's just different. It's just like working with database, not with the creator, right? Right, like in Bubble. So firstly, when you have a database, you have the APIs, you have to check if these APIs are exposed to public, right? If they are exposed to public, everyone can access it without authorization, right? So by default, if you are not using any user table in Xano, all these are public. So this is why for example, when I put the data in the data
Yeah, you
API,
did not need an
you are
auth.
able to get this data. You have to
Yeah.
build some, user authorization in Xano. It's quite simple, and use this Xano out element to authorize users, just like you authorize users in Bubble.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I realized that when you did the API connection to fetch the people data, you didn't really need an auth. You just slap in the API endpoint, and you got the data directly from Xano. You didn't really need anything. So the way we have privacy, we set up privacy in Bubble. For example, you can say that if I'm not a member of a team, I shouldn't be able to see the other data, the other team data. If I'm not logged in, I should be able to see this type of data. Is this something that people can still do? And how difficult is it to set such privacy rules?
Basically, you have to work with the API calls here in Xan. For example, when you have the database of people, you can add a relation to the user table. And firstly, we need to create it. But when you are starting with Xano and pass all this creator, it creates automatically the user table, and you are able to to authenticate users, and based on that, provide them the data from API or not. Maybe I will quickly create a table of users, because this is user. Right? We have a user table, and this table will be used for authentication. Yeah? There's a possibility to use tables as authentication, right? And we can create a user email, right? This will be email, address, and password. There are special fields for that, right, in Babel. And right now we have our user table in Xano. And when we go back to the people table,
Yeah.
you can, for example, here create a reference to user table. So, right, for example, this was the record that they created, and now we have a relation to user table. So it's similar when we have the here the people. Bubble automatically adds the creator, but we can create the field user ID and relate it to
The
user,
user.
right? This is the same, right? So we are joining these two tables in a very simple way. And then in the Xano API, for example, when we are querying all the records from people, we have to add a condition here, right? Because this is the API endpoint. It's
Yeah.
you have some inputs, you have some functions. There are a lot of functions in Xano where you can manipulate data that's different from Bubble, and you get the response. So basically, we are adding a function called precondition, And this is the function that checks some things before the next action
Will
will
take
happen.
place. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can add the precondition to check the things. For example, if the ID is matches the current user, or we can, for example, when we have this this query, we can add filters here, right? So add the conditionals, and for example, we can search for the peoples only where
User ID
user ID is out,
equal to
right?
ID.
So only the authorized user will be able to see only his records. So this is how you do it in Xano. So it's quite different, right? In Bubble, it's more complicated, but you also have much more possibilities, in providing data. A lot of functions here, possibility to join data from many tables and so on. So this is a very simple example.
Yeah, that's a whole lot to cover up for, I mean, within one day. I'm pretty sure as we get to talk about database over and over again, a lot of persons will get to understand what building in Xano and integrating with Bubble is all about. So meanwhile, if you're watching this for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe. And if you are a SaaS founder looking forward to building your application, looking forward to launching your SaaS, there's a link down there for you to subscribe to our newsletter. Just subscribe, and every week we will send you something super cool that will enable you to build your SaaS with no code. So Tom, I know it's almost getting to 1 hour, so before you leave, I know you're building something currently, Clue. You're building something currently to help freelancers manage their project, manage their time. So do you want to share, about that, what you're currently building and how people can take advantage of what you're building right now?
Yeah. The truth is that right now I've started with this no-code freelancer roadmap. So it's a 7-day email course for all the people who are looking to explore the no-code freelancer map, and how to get from all this no-code movement, and how to be the no-code freelancer. So if you're interested in this area, feel free to go to nocodefreelancer.com and leave your email. It's completely free. And in a couple of weeks, I'm also launching a tool that will help you to work with your no-code projects. I will announce it for the course members, and of course on my Twitter. So if you would like to follow me, it will be cool, because I'm building in public a lot of things there.
Yeah, definitely. There's no other better way to build than to build in public. So see, guys, I have taken this particular course myself, become a no-code freelancer. I have recommended it to my girlfriend, anybody who I think is looking forward to becoming a no-code freelancer. This is a course that I really tell them to take, because, it covers up from building your profile. What is no code even? Building your profile, going all the way to getting, no code jobs, going all the way to marketing, personal branding. See, all the things that you need to start up your life as a no code freelancer. This free course. So you see, it's free. That's why I'm not, I'm just pushing it to you now because it's free. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be soon. It's going to be paid, Tom, right? It's going to be paid soon, right?
We'll see. Right now it's for free. I'm still, I'm still improving it. So, if you could just give me some feedback, sign up and give me feedback. It's all I'm asking for right now.
Okay.
Right now it's free. Possibly in the future it will be paid, or it will be the part of the product that I'm building. But right now it costs zero.
Okay, see, right now Tom is saying that it costs zero. Tom is a professional. He's been in the no-code space for the past 4 years, so he knows what he's talking about. And right now it costs free. So you have to click on the link below right now to sign up and to get it before he slaps in a $49 on it. This type of resources is not something you get anywhere. I'm telling you, this is going to go for around $49, and it's better you get it now for free. Learn something, give Tom feedback as to, the way he can improve it and the way he can, he can use it so that he can make better changes and shipping better newsletter and better product for himself. So don't forget, you can also join me and Tom next week. We're still going to talk about database and Xano. Join us next week so we can show you how to navigate how to build your database somewhere else instead of building it in Xeno, so you can have options. You can keep your data and you can safeguard stuff. Tom, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
Really, really
you.
do I appreciate you. Thank you. I super love your experience when it comes to when it comes to explaining Xano, and I can't really wait to. I mean, I can't really wait to have you come back again to share a whole lot more about Xano, integrating with Bubble and lots of other database tool that we don't really know about. Thank you very much, Tom. Really
Thank
appreciate you.
you. Looking forward. Take care.
Yeah, do have a lovely day. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.